So I want to take you through in this video the anxious preoccupied attachment style or love style. And in this video, we are going to cover 5 key things that you might have thought were simply your personality, but might actually have a lot more to do with your attachment style and some of these different characteristics. So I'm going to take you through this. I also think it's important to just cover a little bit about how the personality works at a high level. I will share a slide with you just so you can sort of visually see this. And then also, if you're not familiar with attachment styles, anxious preoccupied is one of 4 major love styles, and our love or attachment style is basically the way in which we've been conditioned to give and receive love and really attach or connect to other people in relationships. And we all have a specific sort of like rule book subconsciously for how this works based on what our programming was or our conditioning was from childhood. And so if you are not familiar with attachment styles, it definitely unlocks like a whole new world into relationships and patterns and why we do the things that we do, and really helps you understand yourself and others. So I'm going to take you through the anxious attachment style or love style in this video specifically. And I will share a slide with you so that you can sort of see a visual representation of all of this as well. So first and foremost, the anxious preoccupied attachment style or love style definitely has a personality that comes largely from their conditioning in childhood. But what I want to share with you that's I think very important to address is most of our personality features come from conditioning. So if we grow up and we get rewarded or we have good outcomes or results from a specific behavior, even if it's not intentionally rewarded from parents, for example, even if there's something like, we get attention from our peers or our friends when we do something, and that's the reward, or we get approval from our parents or caregivers. These things that we associate with good outcomes, we tend to keep wanting to magnify in our own personality. So we tend to adapt by going, okay, if I do this behavior or show up in this way, this is more likely to get my needs met. So I'm going to keep repeating it. And whatever we rinse and repeat that has that kind of emotional response is part of how subconscious programming works and how these features of our personality get ingrained. And on the flip side, the things that we see as having negative outcomes or taking away from our needs being met, or being associated with punishment or shaming or feeling excluded from a situation, those things that we do that we see lead to negative outcomes, we try to repress in our personality. Now, this is where our attachment style has such a massive impact because, as most of you know, following this channel, we develop our initial attachment style between the ages of 0 to 2. And of course, that's subject to change throughout life, but we tend to develop that love style at a very young age based on the modeling that our parents give to us in terms of how they connect and how they attach to us and what behaviors they show that leads to us adapting our patterns to connect with them. So, first and foremost, some of the really common things you'll see is that anxious preoccupieds tend to be very friendly and sociable. They tend to be very easy to connect with. And again, this is because anxious preoccupieds tend to have this big abandonment fear from childhood because of that sort of inconsistency that comes with the parenting. And so they tend to constantly want to figure out how to maintain proximity and get closer to people. So much of their daily focus in their mind, in their thoughts, in their emotions, just in terms of what they're almost like investigating all the time, has to do with how they can get closer to people. So if you're always practicing something, you're more likely to excel at it. So you'll see generally anxious preoccupieds are quite good at winning people over, leading to some of their characteristics from their personality being that they tend to be quite friendly and sociable. Even if they're shy, when you have a conversation with them, they still have that like really friendly and sociable kind of nature. Well, technically nurture. And then they tend to be charismatic. They tend to be the type of person that you feel like is very likable. You can get along with easily. You can kind of click with or connect with. And they tend to be good at like asking people about themselves and sharing things about themselves as well. And so they make for like good connectors in relationships. And again, this comes from their whole conditioning patterns from childhood are like, hey, how do I get closer to people? How do I win people over? How do I get on people's good side and make them feel special so they'll want to connect with me? All as a means to adapt and to avoid abandonment. Number three, we will tend to see anxious, preoccupied individuals really dislike spending time alone. And this is because they have this fear of abandonment from childhood because of that conditioned inconsistency. So when we were talking about conditioning earlier, we talked about how if we have a negative experience, we try to repress things that we're gonna associate as having the negative outcome. And we'll see this with the anxious preoccupieds because they fear abandonment, they really will try to avoid being alone so that they can keep staying connected. And so they'll really dislike spending time alone, and they'll often fill their social calendars and make sure they've got everything double and triple booked. And, maybe not to that extent, but they tend to want to always be around people. Again, even if they're shy, they'll constantly like call their really close one friend or call that close family member or, the couple people in their lives that they're close to, they'll tend to want to really deeply attach with. Now, if you are listening to this and you're not that familiar with love styles and attachment styles, there's a lot of beautiful qualities and strengths to each attachment style. And then there's also different challenges to the insecure attachment style. So you might see, for example, that anxious preoccupieds can also be sometimes like needy or clingy in relationships and can feel really anxious and panicked at the thought of somebody pulling away from them. And it can be really disrupting to your life. And if you want to do a deep dive into that and learn to recondition these patterns, because we're not born with these things, they get conditioned into us and we can condition them out using subconscious reprogramming principles. And we can actually make a huge dent in these in a very short period of time. So if you want to change some of these patterns, and I'll go into the last two and explain them here, but if you want to just be able to have healthier, more lasting, secure relationships, and if you want to really understand like what makes people tick, what makes you tick, and how to recondition what's not working for you, then you can actually check out our anxious preoccupied reprogramming course down below. And you can check it out for free for 14 days. Since it's Valentine's month, we are doing a 14-day free trial to all of our content. You can check everything out literally for free. And a great place to start if you're sick of feeling like that neediness in relationships and that panic and that fear of abandonment just being so disruptive to your life and just like literally preoccupying so much of your thoughts and emotions and energy. And if you want to learn to feel like safe and settled into relationships, check out that course for free. We guarantee a breakthrough in 7 days, or you get your money back. We have a full money back guarantee because we have so many amazing results from people. So that first major breakthrough in understanding yourself and seeing that first big needle mover, you can actually get from just taking that course. It's only an hour and a half long, and it will give you tremendous insights into yourself and relationships and what you're doing wrong and what can be done better and how to release old patterns. So anyways, check it out. It's free down below if you want to use the link, and I will go into the last two here. So number four, when we talk about forming relationships, anxious preoccupieds tend to want to move very quickly in their relationships. They tend to want to move really fast. And it can feel rejecting when people have a different natural pace that they've been conditioned to move at. And it can cause an anxious preoccupied to kind of feel let down or excluded or, disconnected. But what's really important to understand is everybody has a pace based on their own individual conditioning. And when you start understanding this pace for yourself and understand that it's okay for people to have different paces of relationships, you can learn to have those healthy compromises and meet halfway rather than accidentally trying to move too fast and it accidentally pushing somebody else away. So anyways, the course actually covers that too, and sort of the different pace at which we try to move in relationships. And last but not least, we will often see anxious preoccupieds being big people pleasers. Wanting to please people and contribute to their lives and show up is a really nice thing. But where it becomes really problematic is when it's at the expense of the relationship to ourselves. So if I, for example, let's pretend I'm AP and I people please all day long, but then there's no time for me or my needs, or I never get to share what's important to me in a relationship, or I betray or abandon my own boundaries because I'm so busy people pleasing. This is where we have problems. And what you'll see is securely attached individuals, they're really good at meeting somebody else's needs, but also considering themselves in the process. So being able to show up for their needs, their boundaries. If somebody says to me, for example, hey, can you come over all day Sunday and help me clean my house? I might like love that person and really care about that person. But for me, if Sunday's my one day off and I really want that Sunday to myself, I might make a healthy compromise. So I might say, for example, you know what, Sunday's usually my day to like run errands and play catch up on things around the house and just sort of take some time to nourish me and and, my own needs. And, I'm actually not available all day Sunday, but I can pop by for an hour. I'll bring you a coffee and I'll help you get started. So we can find these like healthy compromises where we're still giving and contributing, but in a way that's not self sacrificing, in a way that's taking our own needs into consideration. And it's such a big lesson for anxious love styles because they tend to self abandon and self betray so much. And then they just feel like nobody's there for them. And it can feel really lonely and isolating. So, anyways, these are some big things to pay attention to. Hopefully, this video was valuable for you. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. I literally put out daily content here on YouTube, very short form content. Our courses go way more into depth and into detail. And if you want to do that deep dive into anxious, preoccupied attachment style, check out that course for free down below. And thank you for watching.